Hey, welcome everyone. Man, it is such an honor to be with you guys here today. And also, it is an honor to welcome our newest sponsor, and that's Emergo Academy. Emergo Academy is an amazing program. It's actually where I got certified to be an international crisis and recovery coach. However, if you are not even looking at wanting to be a crisis or recovery coach, taking Dave and Susan Kenny's training will help you in your everyday life because they believe recovery is a brain thing. And when we're talking about recovery, we're not talking just recovery from an addiction, whatever that addiction may be. They come in all different types of forms. But we're also talking the brain first approach in anything that's happening in your life, crisis, traumas, recovery. Like I said, I've personally taken the training and it has literally changed my life. You know, I can really say with the stuff that I've gone through at the beginning of the year with losing a leg, losing a spouse, and just dealing with so much, I could have easily fallen back into my addiction as well. However, with the training that I took and learning how to reprogram the brain and really also to start recognizing thoughts that are not good thoughts and being able to change that. So basically, it's like coming up to a fork in the road, and you can either take the dark or you can take the light. A lot of times in my life, the majority of the times in my life, I took the dark. It was just kind of a way to go because I didn't want to feel what I was feeling. However, when you take the light, you have a lot better choices and healthier choices. So again, I just want to give out a huge shout out and a big thank you to Dave and Kenny Susan or Dave and Susan Kenny at Emergo Academy. You can find more about them at emergoacademy.com. So welcome everyone to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. And I am here with my lovely friend who I just adore and appreciate so much, Amber Kay. And this is the second time Amber's been on the show. And today we're going to be talking about hope, healing, and the courage to keep showing up. And I really feel that this topic is perfect because both Amber and I, as well as so many other people, we've gone through a lot of challenges this year in 2025. And we were talking before the show that, this is a shift. 2025 is supposed to be a big shift, right? The universe is even shifting. A lot of planets are lining up that have never lined up before. And me personally, I have felt so many different feelings and so many, it's almost like my vision is really aligning with a lot of stuff, even though the first of the year didn't turn out so well. However, a lot of blessings have also come out of it. So, Amber, again, thank you for your time. Thank you for jumping on here and wanting to use your voice because you know this just as much as I do. My gosh, you're on so many committees and different things. But again, it's about using our voices, right? And it's about getting ourselves out there and it's about helping other individuals, no matter what that looks like.
Yes, I completely agree, and I know that when we were talking about topics, this one for me definitely is about. I mean, my whole journey, right, has been about being able to have hope and to heal. Um, I have learned over this last year what it really means to be able to have the courage to keep showing up. Right, this year has been very, very challenging, just with my own health, jobs, uh, community, family stuff. It was like every aspect of the universe was testing me to see, how solid my foundation was. um, and it's brought me a lot of hope to be able to say, I do have a community, and I have been able to show up in those spaces because I've been able to be courageous, to have a voice, right? I don't really shy away from my truth. I sometimes try to navigate how to be like professional and graceful in it. um, I've learned the truth always comes out, and it's courageous to heal, right? It's courageous to heal and to be vulnerable. I have probably this year asked for help more than I ever have in all of my recovery. I've allowed people to see me in those moments where I just can't show up, and that's hard for me. My worth used to be tied to what I did, and I felt like people wouldn't see me or want me if I wasn't showing up. And now I get to show up in a different capacity, and that's huge for me. And that's where the hope comes that like I am enough and I am worthy and I am deserving. And my healing looks different and it's shifted this year. And that's okay. But I still show up and I still smile and I still am me, no matter, what other people say. So yeah, thank you for having me. I love this podcast and just being a part of it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Amber. And you know, we go through a lot of things in our lives. You've been on a long journey, right? In your journey of recovery,
Yeah.
and so many of us out there, I mean, every day, right? It seems like sometimes we've got three or four types of recovery things going on. What's really cool and what I have found, at least for me in my life, is it's taken me to a better spot. I was talking to somebody the other day, that both you and I know, but I won't mention the name here on the show, that sometimes it feels like the whole world's crumbling down on top of us, and that we've got so much weight. And why is this happening? And I'm doing everything I can to live a good life and be honest and have integrity and have accountability. And, there's so many things. Yes, we are human. We're not perfect all the time. A lot of times we lose our integrity for a short period of time, but we've learned enough to bring it back really quick. But it's about going through that fire and getting to that other side, because that's where everything's at, right?
Yeah.
It's just to share something real quick. So, as being a spiritual person, a lot of stuff that's been going on, as you know about, with all kinds of crap in our event and people's claiming this or saying that, you know, I was really starting to feel a lot of pressure on that. And I'm just going, why is this happening? I just don't get it. I just don't understand. And I'm praying about it, right? I'm asking for direction. I'm asking for guidance, and I'm asking for strength, because I don't want to do things the way I used to do things 14 years ago, because all that did was create more damage. And it's crazy. I had to go somewhere. I jumped in my truck, and I got in my truck, and all of a sudden this voice said, which I call my spirits, it's like, listen to Joel Osteen. Now, Joel Osteen, he's like, I don't know what they call him, but he has a non-type denominator church or chapel or whatever in Houston, I think it is. And he's grown really big. He's written a number of books. And I'll be damned, I caught it right at the beginning. It says, um, stay on this channel because Joel is going to be talking about walking through the fire to get to the blessings. And I was like, oh my freaking hell, here it is. It's
Yeah.
coming through the radio. My answers are coming through the radio,
Yeah.
and it was such a great message. And it really, really helped me that day. It helped me get out of that funk. And the journey that you have been on, I'm sure you have gotten yourself to that point now
Yeah.
where you're going, okay, yeah, man, things are tough right now.
Yeah.
However, like you said, you keep showing up. Maybe there's some times it's really hard because of health things, right? It's very difficult to leave or get yourself up, but the majority of the time you're freaking doing it. And you're standing up for what you believe. And so many of us back down because of what we believe, because of the voices from the outside.
Yeah.
And I tip my hat off to you, Amber, for doing what you're doing, and all the people that you're helping, because really that's what it's all about. And the healing that is happening to us, it's crazy because a lot of that healing is while we are helping others.
Yeah.
Is that what you have found?
Yeah. Um, and I completely agree. I think that you know, when I was diagnosed with MS at the end of last year, and I kind of sat in it, right? I wallowed and woe is me, and my life is over, um, and then I made a commitment to myself this year, 2025, that I was going to start taking my own advice, right? That I was going to be more authentic and owning my whole true self, right? And my whole true self is not just that I used drugs and I recovered from drugs and alcohol, but my whole true self is that I have a history of sexual assaults, domestic violence, mental health, self harm, many, many suicide attempts, right? Um, and that is just as much of my story and my healing as this other piece, right? And I found that, and the more that I allowed myself to own all of those pieces, it was like I had people coming in my life that needed someone to hold space with them to help them on their healing journey of walking through this, right? I am now able, like, I host a women trauma group with Callie Sober. And if you would have asked me, 6 years ago, if I would have been at a space where I was like owning my truth of my trauma in that aspect, I've been like, mm-mm, like, we're not touching that. Like, we're going to put it on a bookshelf and we're not touching it. It's one of those things that it's implied, right? Like when you're a drug addict and you're homeless, it's implied that you have trauma. I don't need to speak about it. And this year has been like, no, like, I'm taking it all off and this is what it is, and this is my authentic true self. um and I don't have all the answers. And I absolutely am healing as I'm helping others, but I have people coming in my life that need to be there. And I'm also experiencing, they say that, God will continue giving the lesson until you learn it.
Mhm. I I go with that. I agree with that one. Yep.
um and so, right, this, I have been in spaces where I'm like, why is this happening? Like, I feel like I'm a good person, I feel like I'm selfless, I feel like I work a good program, I do all these things. Like, am I really here again? Like, am I really questioning my worth? Am I really questioning all these things? And the reality is that, like, I have to keep learning this lesson because there's some part of me that hasn't been able to own the real authentic piece of me, to say I matter and I'm choosing me. And if that upsets you, well, that upsets you, and that's okay. If you can't love me for all of my parts and all of my story and all of my healing and whatever that looks like, then we're not supposed to be at the same table. I can still love you and I can still respect you. That just means that we don't need to sit at a table together, right? And that's been a hard thing for me, is to be able to realize that I want everybody to have a seat at my table. That's my whole goal, is to spread hope and to spread light, and like abundantly, right? um but everyone's journey looks different, and that's okay. And so, yeah, just being courageous to show up when you don't want to.
Yeah. And I love that you said, matter of fact, I'm writing it down, um, that everyone's journey is different, because it is, every single person in this world has certain strengths and certain weaknesses.
Yep.
And many of us along in our journey, we can figure out how to strengthen some of these weaknesses. However, some of those weaknesses, there's nothing wrong with having them, right? Because some are very, very hard to overcome. Some of us never overcome them. But again, it's okay, because there's nothing wrong with having them. There's nothing wrong with going along your journey and doing it the way that works for you. Because again, that's what makes us all different. That's what makes it all unique. It's like when I first started doing this podcast, I went to my producer at the time after about 4 or 5 months of doing the show, and I says, I really don't think this show's going to last much longer. And he's like, why are you saying that? And I'm like, it's because almost everyone I interview, their stories are the same. Who wants to tune in and hear the same stories every single week? And he goes, Al, trust me, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And I listened to him and he gave me really good advice. And I don't know how much time went by. And then all of a sudden, one day, my light bulb went off and I went, it's not the story, it's the journeys.
Yeah.
Everyone's journey is so different. It's so unique. It's a perfect fingerprint for them, a perfect fingerprint for them. And now I have come years later down the road. Now I have come to go, our lives are so well scripted God knows exactly who he's bringing into our life. He knows exactly who he's taken away, or removing in our life, whether it's from a distance or whether it's permanently or whether it's due to loss, you know. And again, those lessons, I did the same thing as you, Amber. It's like, why do I continue to go through this? Why is this continuing to happen? And and me and a good friend, we used to talk about it. And it's like there's a message in the mirror every single time. There's a lesson behind everything pretty much that happens. And I finally got the lesson. And I'll be frickin' damned if as soon as I got that answer and I figured out the lesson, it all went away. I mean, it was like in a blink of an eye. Now, God has a sense of humor. He has another one lined up for you,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
go through. Maybe not as bad, but he still has another one lined up for you. And I think that's what's cool about our whole life journey.
yeah. No, and I think that there's true. I've regrown like my faith and my connection with God over this last year too. It's always been there. I've always been, strong in faith and in that aspect of it, but learning what it really means to walk in faith, right? I think that this year has also taught me what that looks like. For the simple fact that I learn lessons and then it's like storm after storm after storm and right and it's kind of like people are like uh we don't know what to say. I'm like it's okay, neither do I.
Yeah.
But I also feel like um I feel like I know that I'm a warrior and I know that I was put here for a reason. And I've had to experience the things that I've experienced so that I can help walk other people through it. They say that it's hard to, take advice or hear people when they haven't been through it, right? It's like I went to treatment and I was like, some therapist who had only went to school. And again, going to college and school is hard, and I would never take that away from anybody, but there is a different level of someone who's been through it and knows the emotion, right? Knows that like the places and the things that I went through in my addictions and my codependency and toxic relationships and all the things. I didn't recognize myself in the mirror, right? But I also know what I needed to hear or what I wanted to hear and what I was longing for. So now when I help people and walk people through things, I have the ability to say, look, like, I don't know if this is going to help you, but this is what I wanted to hear when I was, laying on the bathroom floor and going through all those different things. And you get to show up in a different way, and it's courageous, right? That's that courageous piece of show like sharing pieces of myself with the people that are around me, and knowing that sometimes like it may come back to bite me. Being vulnerable and being courageous may sometimes be given to people with ill intent, right? um, or even a community that doesn't necessarily share the maybe the same God that I do, right? Like my God is loving and kind and forgiving and knows my true self and my intent behind everything that I do, and I'm very mindful of that, right? I'm very mindful of how I show up and how I do my best. I'm not always great, and sometimes I be acting like my bratty self, and and then I do my inventory at night and I'm like, I gotta go apologize tomorrow for that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Um, but that's the human factor, right? The human factor is that it's okay to have feelings, it's okay to be emotional, it's okay to not be my best self. Um, and I'm just gonna keep showing up and I'm gonna keep healing. Like I have a lifelong environmental factors that have programmed my brain to see things, and so now I'm taking all of this back to, I mean, it started at the age of 4, right? I'm 44. That's 40 years
Yeah.
like having to unlearn behaviors and taking off those glasses and adjusting my vision and putting new glasses on. And it changes as I evolve, as I grow, as I learn. Like it changes, right? I keep switching out my glasses and I keep, hopefully to the point where it's like, oh, I can see clearly. And I just want to love people, and people matter. At the end of the day, people matter, and love and hope, and like there is light. And I don't care how you get there.
Right. Yeah, and I'm with you on that. I know, you and I think a lot alike, and there are other people who look at it the same way we do, and other people who don't, right? But it really doesn't matter how you get there, and that's how I see it as well. Because again, it's your journey, right? I mean, and sometimes we need crutches to help us, get to where we want to be. I saw this post that, was talking about that's the weak way. It's the weak way that if you have to use a crutch, it's the weak way of this, and you're not strong enough if you do that. And yet, but at the end of it, it talked about spirituality, about using a higher power, and it helped. Wasn't that a crutch? Isn't our higher power a crutch for us to help us get us a little bit further? And then also, I got really thinking about this because, man, I wanted to dive deep in my thoughts with what was said. And then I was like, man, I know in my life, when I've struggled with some things, God led me to a crutch to help get me to that next point because he knew without it, I wasn't going to get there. And now that I've had my leg amputated, I was kind of putting the two together. I'm like, after I had my leg removed, I couldn't go anywhere without assistance. So the first time I got up, 2 days after I lost my leg, I had to have a walker. I had to have a physical therapist who had a belt around me so she could hang on to it in case I fell. That was my crutch.
Yeah,
That was to get me from point A to point B. Then I finally got to where I got enough strength to where now I could trust myself a little bit more. And then I was on crutches, but I'm still using a crutch,
yeah,
literally this time, right? And then down the road, a little bit more strength, and then things started happening. I had to have that until I could finally get a socket and have a prosthetic foot, which was basically just a freaking pole at the time.
yeah,
I still had to use crutches even when I put that on because I had to, again, use that to help me to put the weight back on that leg to be able to figure out the walking again. Even though I've been walking for 61 years, you got a part of your body that's now been removed.
yeah,
So again, my version of it is I think God throws us a lot of lifelines, a lot
yeah.
of lifelines, and it's to help us. And sometimes he takes that chance, right? Because a lot of times he can throw us that lifeline and we can take it, but then we could take advantage of it.
Mhm.
And we end up back to where we was at before without the lifeline.
Yeah,
However, those that I feel like yourself and so many other people that I have met in the recovery community that has used these lifelines, these crutches, man, they've gone so far in their life
yeah,
and doing amazing. And I think it's really cool because again, it's their journey. And so what anybody else thinks? That journey was their journey. So
yeah,
I mean, you and I can bake a cake differently. And I could
yeah,
say, oh, I bake a cake better than you, even though you put the same ingredients that I put,
yeah.
right? So anyway,
I mean, and I think, right, like I think the biggest lesson too for me is, and I speak a lot about this, right? The recovery capital piece, right? And recovery capital for me means that like when I'm healthy, right, and I'm healing, I'm making deposits into all these banks. I'm making deposits into my spirituality. I'm making deposits into my community. I'm making deposits into social, family, right? All of the different pillars of my recovery. Because what I learned is that like this is not a me thing. I absolutely cannot do this on my own. I have tried it. And one time I even got like 18 months. But I had nothing sustainable and life hit me and it knocked me out, right? What I've learned though is that the importance of being mindful of all those things. I'm mindful of my physical health, my mental health, my emotional health, my social, my spiritual, right? I have all of those different components, and all of them for me are a part of my healing. Now, sometimes they intertwine, right? When I do events, and I love doing events, and that is
You
like
do.
my like breath of air. Um, that incorporates all of it, right? That incorporates my spiritual, my physical, my social, my mental, my service, like all the things. Now, other times when I wake up in the morning and I'm doing my prayers and I'm doing my meditations and I'm doing my gratitude, right? I'm banking into the spiritual component. And there's going to be times like I'm going through some stuff right now, and a lot of my pillars are, I feel bankrupt, like physically, bankrupt. Um, but because I've been making deposits in all of these other spaces, I can take withdrawals, right? My community has shown up in a way that they're like, we got you, right? And so instead of me feeling tilted and feeling like, oh, I'm like bankrupt here, where do I go? Like, and so for me, it's the same thing. Like, I don't do this alone. And sometimes it looks different. Like, sometimes it is saying, hey, like, I need some help. Like, I don't know how I get through this, right? But I have those things. I have faith in my higher power. I have faith in my community. That the work that I've done and the healing that I've done matters. And at first, when all this was happening, I was shaken to my core, right? I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
um, and I did. I had some people come at me and have their opinions about things. um, and I'm going through a couple different storms right now, all at the same time. Um, and then on the other hand, I had people who just were like, "Hey, like I see you, I love you. Like, what can we do? Right? Like, closed mouths don't get fed. Like, your community loves you, and we see you, right?" And so I'm able to pull from that so that I'm not feeling so financially bankrupt. I'm not feeling so spiritually bankrupt. I'm not asking myself like, I did all of this for what? Because that's the part where that's where for me, I have to remind myself like, I asked for this was my choice. I chose recovery. I chose to repair my relationship with my family. I chose to repair my relationship with my higher power, and I asked for this journey. This is something I asked for, so I need to be courageous enough to show up and walk through it. um and again, like, things look different, and that's okay. But I'm not going to be bankrupt over it either.
Yeah. And you should not be,
Yeah.
and I love how you put that. I love the whole scenario behind that of you were able to take loans somewhere else, right? Because sometimes that's what we can do. And again, how you said we can't do it alone. Amen to that. None of us can do it alone. You know, it's like I made a comment, somebody was talking about someone who was a self-made millionaire. And I'm like, self-made. I says, there is no such thing as a self-made millionaire. And
Yeah.
he's like, no, no, this guy did this and this and this and this. I'm like, yeah, but he didn't do it all by himself. It
No.
took other individuals to help him get there. So it's not self-made. I would think self-made is, okay, I literally made this pen, right? I took material and I wove it or knit it or whatever I did. That's self-made.
Yeah.
However, in a way, also, if you look at it, in a way, maybe it's not. And I just thought of this because that material came from somewhere.
Yeah.
The ink came from somewhere. I didn't make any of that. I
Yeah.
just put it to what I had made. So
Yeah.
yeah, we all need that strength from other individuals. And one thing I have definitely learned in the past 14, 15 years since 2009 in my whole journey is it's taken me a long time to realize, but my bubble's pretty small. There's
Yeah.
only a certain amount of people that are allowed inside my bubble. Now, I do have people who are just right on the outside of the bubble, and I look at them as just as important, but there are others, as you mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, there are ones that they're way out here. I
Mhm.
still love them. I still appreciate them, They were still a part of my life. They still helped me in my journey, whatever that was at that time.
Yeah.
But also, it's somebody to love from afar because of where we've grown, right? We had that journey. And I know, God, my higher power, puts certain people in my life all the time. And some have only been here just for a quick minute.
Yeah.
Others have been long term. Others have been part time, but they've all helped me get to the next step to where I needed to be in my life.
No, and I love that, and it was probably a couple years ago. Someone who means a lot to me in my recovery. She's a powerhouse when it comes to her spirituality and her faith, and just owning that and walking in that. And I remember we were having a conversation, and there was this thing about like how you pray, right? And I was just like, I mean, I pray and I'm praying and I'm praying, and she was like, well, how are you praying, right? And I was like, well, like, and she's like, no, like, you need to talk to him like he is your best friend. And if you are like pissed off, and it was like, it almost like set me free, because there are times when I pray and I'm like, hi, can we take a pause?
Yeah.
Like, right? Like, can we hit the pause button on my life and my lessons? Because, like, I don't know who you think I am, but I do feel like I'm about to break, sir. Like,
Yeah.
and it's freeing, right? It's freeing to have that, and it's freeing to be able to say, okay, um, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to learn this lesson again. I guess I needed it. Um, and then sometimes, like, just the utmost, when I look at my circle and I look at like my people, um, I am so blessed. Like, I'm blessed that I have, and some of these people have been a part of my journey since day one, right? I've been fortunate enough to where some of these people are still in my life and show up and love me. And this is something I never would have thought that I would have ever had, right? I never, my whole life, I felt like I didn't measure up. I didn't look how I was supposed to. I didn't sound how I was supposed to. I was not educated. I didn't meet the markers, and people are gonna, leave, and they'll find something better, and it's like people are just like, just show up, like, we don't care, we just love you. And it wasn't until this year and my healing of this year and really being put through the fire that I'm like, oh, people really do love me. And it has nothing to do with how I look. It has nothing to do with my story. It has nothing to do with what's in my bank account or where I live or what I drive. Like, they just genuinely care about me.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like like the fire of hope, right? Because I for a while I felt like maybe I was losing hope in things, and it's like, no, like, there is hope in in the human factor of humanity, right? Like, there are enough of us that are fighting this and courageous enough to say, hey, this is my whole story, this is my whole authentic self, and it's messy, and I'm still healing, so I'm gonna have some bumps in the road. I'm not gonna be my best self, but I promise you one thing, I will be intentional, I will be honest, and I will love the heck out of you, even if you don't love yourself until you can. Um, and with boundaries too, right? I've learned boundaries. Even loving someone from afar and praying for that person from afar, I'm still loving you, but I'm protecting myself first,
Yeah.
right? And that's a hard one. That has been a hard one for me.
Well, that one is a tough one though, Amber. I mean, seriously, right? Because, with the stuff that's happened in my life, especially in the last, 9, 10, 11 years, you know, supporting a loved one who is battling addiction and going to meetings and doing what you can to hopefully be there. And man, I made a ton of mistakes along the way that I wish I could rewind. However, it was part of my journey again, and I heard a lot about boundaries.
Yeah,
And I just thought it was for those who are going through addiction.
no,
It took me so freaking long to sometimes I'm a slow learner on some things, right? But
yeah,
it took me so long to realize, my gosh, these boundaries, that's for everyone. It's for everyone.
Yeah.
But see, that was something I've never had in my life either. Right. And again, of course, I was a liar and a manipulator. That's what I was known as. And that's exactly
Yeah.
who I was, So why boundaries? I don't need boundaries. I'll just go freaking right through your ass, or I'll go around it, or I'll lie to somebody, or whatever I need to do to get what I want. I'll make it
Yeah.
happen. So I don't need boundaries. It's like rules. I'm just going to break them to get what I want. And then life starts changing, and that has been so hard. It's especially the last time, I had to tell the person who I love, freaking still to this day, that I love so much, to have her step away because of what she was choosing to do.
Yeah.
And that was so hard for me. It ate me up inside. It literally killed a part of me for a long, long time. However, at the same time, it seemed like certain things was happening in my life to help strengthen that, right? To help me realize why this needed to be done and why we do have our boundaries. Because when you are working on healing yourself, we cannot completely heal ourselves until we have basically checked off a box here and checked off a box there, whatever that may be. You know, um, it's like loving. I was a guest on a podcast, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, and the host asked me what brings me joy. And at first, I did right off the bat. I said, "Oh my gosh, that's a really good question. I've never been asked that." And I stopped and I'm thinking, "No, I've been asked that question before. What was my answer?" And our brains working so fast. And I remember, oh, years ago, if that would have been asked, I would have said, "Oh, my grandkids, going hiking,
Yeah.
camping, golfing, my family." And this time, those thoughts popped in my head, but it didn't come out of my mouth. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I got tears in my eyes. And I said, for the first time, I can say I'm in love with Al Richards. I love the man he has become. I love the man who he is. See, I get emotional even thinking about it now. I love the man who's on this journey,
Yeah.
right? Because I've climbed the mountain.
Yeah.
I say it all the time. Turn around and you're at the bottom of another one. And I've
Yeah.
climbed that mountain. I have come to be okay with knowing I'm going to be climbing mountains the rest of my life until God calls me home.
Yeah.
And I will always continue to work on myself. However, now I feel I can spread more love in the right way because I am in love with myself. And I'm not saying that in a conceited type way, right? It's not like I look in the mirror and kiss myself and hug myself. That's not what I'm talking about. It's just I love the work that I've put in the last 14, 15 years to get myself to this point. And again, I couldn't have done it without my higher power, and I couldn't have done it with other individuals that my higher power has put in my life to get me there. I did not do this by myself, by all means. And wherever I'm going next, I will not get there by myself either.
No, and I love that you brought that up, because I think there comes a point in time, like in a journey, where you get asked that question, or maybe there's just a moment where you're just like, oh, like for the first time I'm like comfortable in my own skin, right? Um and I think that at the end of the day, like, I'm reminded a lot that like everyone just wants to be heard, everyone wants to be loved, right? Everybody is out here searching for something, right? We're all searching for something. And I was having a conversation with someone, and I was like, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I have a healing journey, and the program that I work. I get to fall back on my program, and my program doesn't let me be a shitty self. Like I no longer get to have an excuse to be a crappy person, right? Um, my program doesn't allow me to not be true to my values and who I am. And so sometimes I'm reminded that, like, well, other people don't have that. Other people don't have the luxury of a program that they work, right? Other people don't have the luxury of healing, or even knowing or being put in situations where, I mean, every belief that I had to challenge, right? Every belief and thought that I thought was true, at some point along my healing journey, I've had to challenge that, and I've had to be open and willing to hearing someone else out. And what it's done for me today is I can look in the mirror and be comfortable with the person staring back. Um, I don't, I still waver sometimes, and I still sometimes get uncomfortable with myself, more of just the outward appearance of things. And and this year has been about owning all of that, right? But at the end of the day, like, I can truly say, for the first time in my whole journey, I do love myself. I love myself enough to walk away. I love myself enough to not need a seat at the table, right? I used to do all these things and I was so busy, and I so busy. Um, and it was just because, like, I was craving to, like, squeeze into the table, like, please just let me sit here. Please just let me sit here, right?
Yeah.
And today it's not about that. Like, you either want to give me a seat or you don't, and that's okay. And I don't think I've ever said those words and actually confidently meant them. I have said them, but it was a lie, right? Because I would say it and then I would get in my car and I would cry, or I would go home and I would cry, and I would beat myself up, and that little voice in my head that was like, oh, well, it's because this is how you look, and because this is what your bank account, or right, all those the human society factors of what people put themselves on.
Yeah.
And today I'm like, listen, I don't have money in my account. I'm leasing my car, and I don't eat healthy. That's okay. I don't care. Like, I'm gonna eat the cookie. I'm gonna drink my Diet Coke, and I'm gonna show up. And you're either gonna love me or hate me. And at the end of the day, God knows who I need to have in my life. God knows the next door and the next hill that I need to climb. So as long as I'm aligned with Him, like, I'm okay. I'll be okay. It may be rocky. I may have to take 100 breaks and have that conversation of, like, can we hit a pause, please? Because I do not feel courageous enough to show up. So I need you to pump the brakes,
Yeah.
like, show me some sun, give me some hope that I'm almost there, because, like, I don't see it, you know. But yeah, loving yourself is huge. Being able to, like, get to a space where, like, you've healed and you can say, like, I love myself, that's a huge accomplishment for anyone that's trying to heal and show up in spaces.
Oh, absolutely. And I also feel that it keeps us away, not all the time, because again, we're still human. We still kind of fall back into that old trap again, right? However, we're a lot quicker of pulling ourselves out.
Yes.
But it helps us, at least it's helped me to learn how to stay on my side of the street.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll voice my opinion, I'll voice my opinion a couple times. And that's all it is just my opinion. Doesn't mean that I'm right. It's just my opinion.
Yeah.
But I won't continue to beat the freaking dead horse with the damn stick.
Yep.
Because if I'm doing that, at least my version of it is, I'm trying to make myself feel better for how I'm seeing it, and I'm wanting other people's justification to help me feel that too,
Yeah.
right? And I say a lot, stay on your side of the street, and Mel Robbins, I just recently, not too long ago, started following her, and I started seeing her TikTok little clips,
Yeah.
and I'm like, my gosh, I love how this woman looks at things, right? And there's been some things that I have already implemented in my life, and there's
Yeah.
some new things I'm going, huh, well, I need to really think about this one, right? I got to look into this.
Yeah.
And I know the new thing now that is just going crazy is it Just Let Them? I mean, she
Yeah.
wrote a book a while ago, from what I understand, but it's really starting to take off. And really it is, right? Just let them. Let them have their opinion. Let them have their outlook, because again, it's their journey.
Yeah.
Now, they're trying to put you in their journey and trying to get them to put you on that same path that they're on.
Yeah.
But again, when we are in that state where which what you and I are talking about,
Yeah.
it helps us have a little bit more strength to stay there.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of times that's what caused us to go into our addiction, right? Is
Yeah.
because we wasn't strong enough at that time. to
Yep.
keep ourselves on this path. So we went and followed somebody else. And then before we know it, we're in a freaking gutter, or we don't have a roof over our head, or every time we got money, we're buying whatever it is we need to use so we can help numb ourselves, right? I mean, gosh, if I went back and thought how much money I must have spent with 8 years worth of weekend of cocaine and booze, I mean, shit.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
ton of money that I threw away, a ton of money that I threw away just to keep myself from wanting to feel what I was feeling.
Yep.
So, but when you get into loving yourself, I think that is your new drug, basically.
Yeah. And I do think, right, that let them, I literally just told someone this, I think was it last night. You know, I spent like 7 hours at the hospital. I'm going through all this stress, all these things. And I was just like, you know what? I was like, I literally am gonna be in my let them era, right? Like everyone's like, I'm in this era and that era and whatever. And I'm like, I really have enough love for myself and confidence in my program and my community that I just am like, I can't. I have I would say that I allowed myself to potentially like relapse in some old behaviors in an aspect of like it got to a point where like I didn't feel safe at my house, right? And that's the thing is that when people talk about all these aspects in recovery and healing, like we better also be talking about like the reality of relapsing in behaviors, right? Like the fact of like being so mentally broken where you're like I don't want to be in my skin and I don't want to be in my house and I don't want to be in my house but I don't want to leave, right? And all those different aspects. And but I think for me, right, the courage that to be honest, and I had that conversation with a few people, right, where I was like, look, like I'm absolutely not okay today. I am not okay today. And I think that as much as I speak on the hope and the love and all the other things, it's a disservice to not be honest about that part of it, right? Like everyone wants to talk about the other side and the hope and the light and all that, but the reality is that like healing and hope and courage are messy and dark and ugly and uncomfortable, right? And so for me, I've also had to own that part of it. Like I'm doing a disservice if I don't if I'm not honest with that. And even with the people in my life, right, where I'm like, look, I can't show up today because I can't people. Like there's no way that I can stand in front of that classroom and share my story and have it mean anything because like I'm not in a space where like I even know confidently what that is.
Yeah.
And so it can be, right? I can be in a space where I am a little bit shaken and have gratitude and love for myself and I can have both of them, right? I choose to lean on my higher power. I choose to give more energy to having hope in the healing. um but I'm courageous enough to say that like there's some darkness that I'm sitting with too, and that's okay. And that doesn't mean that I'm not showing up, right? It doesn't mean that, you know, because no one can be positive all the time. That's just not a thing and that's not real. Like at least not for me, right? I mean, and I'm a pretty positive person, right? I see myself as a positive person. But the reality is that there are times where I'm just like, I don't really care. I don't, I'm not answering the phone because I can't hold space for people and I can't show up because, like, where I am today, like, I'm drowning in my own storm. And to be able to, like, have people that are like, okay, call me if you need something. And that's it. Like, I've never had that in my whole entire life, right? It was always like, what do you mean you're not coming? What do you mean? Right? This pressure. And that's the difference of healing, too, right? When
Yeah.
you heal, the quality of people is different, where they're just like, I'm so glad that you finally are saying that. Thank you. Talk to you tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, well, that was not at all what the tape in my head said was going to happen. But okay, thank you. I'm going to go take a nap.
Yeah.
And that's the cool part about it, right? That's the cool part is when like I get to be courageous in my healing. I get to own all of it, and I get to have people that are like, "Thank heavens, you finally are saying no." What? They're like, "We've been waiting, waiting for you just to tap out." Like, I'm tapping out. Okay.
With you saying that, Amber, at least in my eyes, you hit the nail right on the head. You know, that is all part of the healing to be able to accept the days that you don't feel like shit or that you feel like shit, right? That
Yeah.
you feel like you just don't even want to show your face anywhere, and I've had quite a few of those days here, especially this year, as well as fallen into it last year for a long time. I mean, I went through probably a 2.5 week period, could have been 3 weeks, man, where I I mean, I didn't even want to go to the gym. And for me not to want to go to the gym, I mean, I would feel guilty, right? Because my gym is my part of my healing, and it keeps me in a space that just kind of helps keep my mind strong. And and I remember people even asking me, it's like, are you sure you're okay? And it's like I'm not, but I will be okay. I just got to allow these feelings or these emotions to take their course, right? Whatever it may be. And there's times I ask my higher power, please let it in, man, because I'm tired of feeling this way. But nothing would change. And I really do feel now the moments that it doesn't, it is okay. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's like society has a way of pointing the finger and shunning people because they're not all bright and chipper and the rainbows and unicorns and skittles all the frickin' time, because it's
Yeah.
impossible. It's impossible, like you said. This is life. It's messy. It's troublesome. It's confusing. There's so much being thrown at us. However, I would say the majority of them turn out to be blessings. So,
Mhm.
so many blessings. So many blessings have come out of me losing my leg. You know, um, there's even been a few blessings with me losing Janan on some things, and it's also helped me in a spiritual way, and it's helped me even grow, which I would have rather had something else help me
Yeah.
do that, right, than losing somebody that I cared about so much. But it's all part of our journey, and I love that you can say that you can say no. I'm not worth a shit today. And you know what? It's like, thank you. And I really don't want to talk to you right now because I'm just not in that position, right? However, those that love us and care about us, they're going to understand because a week later or 2 days later, or even 24 hours later, you're going to call them up and go, hey, I hope it was okay that I said that. And they're like, well, sure, of course it is, right? Because they're in theirs as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's nothing wrong with saying that. And I think it's a really good spot where all these tragic things happen to us. Some very, very devastating. But again, like I said, it's walking through that fire to get to the other side. And I have a new thing that I'm gonna take on. And it's crazy because when we was at the overdose thing at the Wheeler Farm the other
Yeah.
day, Brooke comes up and she goes, "Look what I got you! Look what I got you!" And she brought me a buffalo, and it was from not Natsu's table,
Yeah.
Jackie's table, right? Well, the reason why she brought me the buffalo because I talk a lot about how when a storm is coming across the plains, there is always one buffalo, the chief part per se, and he leads the rest of the herd into the storm. And the reason why buffalo go towards the storm because it gets them through that storm quicker. Because if they're walking away, the storm's still following them, right? And then
Yeah.
eventually the storm's over, but they're still walking with the storm. But when they walk through it, of course, they're still going to hit that storm, but they get through the other side a lot quicker and let that storm pass. And my coaches actually are the ones, Dave and Susan Kenny, who I talked about from Emergo. They're the ones that open that up in my eyes. And Susan's like, Al, there's your new thing right there, right? Buffalo walking through the storm or towards the storm. And so I love that. And that's why Brooke was so excited when she saw the buffalo and brought it over to me because she knew that's how I look at life. And you do that same thing, unless I'm wrong. But when
Yeah.
you admit that you're not doing worth a shit that day, really you are walking into the storm, right?
Yeah.
Because you're allowing yourself to do whatever it is that you need to do to get yourself through it as quick as possible. And sometimes that storm is a long storm.
Hmm.
However, it's better than following it because I think the time doubles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that's true. I love that. I love that analogy, and I do. I feel like I'm at a place in my life now where I am just like, okay, here we go. Let's, and I embrace it, and it's because of that, right? Like I'm reminded, like I chose this, right? When I chose to go to treatment 6.5 years ago, I made a commitment and I chose the direction of my life, right? Because the other choice, I could have sat in jail and I could have done my time and I could have revoked, restarted, and all that, right? So I chose this path. This was something that I knowingly, with clear mind, decided that this was going to be what it was. And so, how do I not courageously like show up, right? When this was my choice, this was my decision. And not only that, like I have kids, I have adult children who um, need an example of it's okay when life is hard, right? And it's okay to figure out your path. And I, owe it to them to help them break the generational trauma and the generational addiction and those aspects of it, to say that like, look, like I may fall a million times, but I promise you I will get up a million and one. And I'm honest and I'm transparent, and they see that my circle of influence and the people that I have close to me, they are the ones that give me the courage to show up in that capacity, right? Because people all the time are like, well, I think about you all the time, like if Amber can walk through this stuff, so can I, right? And sometimes I'm like, I don't want to be the example for other people to have strength, right? Like I just want to be able to just, and I did that, right? Sunday, I had that conversation. I was supposed to table at that event and I showed up, and I was met with the most love and grace, and I was like, look, like I can't table this event. I just need to be a person in recovery, and I need to honor the people that I've lost, and I need to honor the people that are here, and that's what I have to give. And those are the things, right? Like that's where it matters the most, is that at the end of the day, like I'm true to who I am. And I have courage, like I have the courage to say, like, I absolutely don't understand any of it, but I know I made a choice. I know I had a conversation with God, and I told him this is what I wanted, and I asked him to help me walk me through it. So who am I to question him? Right? Who am I to say that like you're doing this wrong? Right? Who am I to say that I don't have the strength to get through it? If he feels that I do, then I do. And if this is the storm and this is the mountain I'm climbing, then so be it. Right? I'm gonna tighten my laces and I'm gonna get to climbing and I'm gonna face the storm, because that's what it's about. Because I have hope. I have hope for better days, and I know that I'm healing so that I can level up. Right? This is about leveling up to something that I'm dreaming about in my vision for my life. So you can't stay. There's a saying that says there's no comfort in the growth zone, and there's no growth in the comfort zone.
Yeah,
Right?
so
and
true.
and I remind myself that all the time. If I'm uncomfortable, I'm growing. And if I'm comfortable, I'm probably at some point have to be mindful that like I don't get stuck being comfortable, right? Because then I don't, and then I'm not growing.
Well, that's where we get stagnant, right?
Yeah,
If we're not continuously doing our best to change in a positive direction, then we're stagnant. And it doesn't have to be a big change, right? It can you can only step forward 1 inch. It doesn't matter. You still stepped forward one
yeah,
inch, not back 1 inch.
yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely huge. And I get what you say about how other people could come up and say, you have been a huge blessing to me, right? To where you've helped me this, because if Amber can do it, I can do it. And I like to go back and use, Jesus, because when he was first starting to spread the message, every person that he picked as his disciples were people that had issues,
Yeah.
right? They were messed up. One was a whore, one robbed people, I mean, other, he wanted to fight people all the time, I mean, there was so many not bad qualities about these individuals. However, he picked them, right? Because he knew where they were at in their journey. And he knew that they knew where other people were at that was in the same boat that they're at. And I like to say, and I could be wrong, but a guest of mine said this 3 years ago. She's out of Colorado, and I've stuck with it ever since. Those of us that are still around, we're the angels, no matter whether we want to agree with it or not. And the reason why we are those disciples where we're out there now giving our hand and going, what can I do to lead you? Because you lived it, right? I mean, if you're going into labor and I go, Amber, here, let me take your hand. I'll help you through your birth. How the hell do I know? I've never been through one, right? So
Yeah.
how the hell can I really help you?
Yeah.
It's impossible. Oh, well, I read a book on this once, or I used to watch Dr. Hauser, or whatever, Dr.
Yeah.
Dewey, whatever his name was on the series, you know, it's those who have walked that life, walked that path.
Yeah.
However, again, I think it's really important too that we stay on our path and stay off other people's path because again, that's their path. And sometimes we can intertwine, sometimes we cannot. But
Yeah.
loving who you are, staying true to who you are,
Yeah.
man, that is such a huge stepping stone when we can get to that point in our life. Because when shit does hit the fan, or as I call them, shit balls, and they hit us in the face, we have a lot more strength to help us clean it up,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, my gosh, my dear, it's hard to believe we have just flown through an hour just like that. It goes by so quick, and I could sit down and probably have another hour conversation with you so easy. Amber, you're an amazing person. You're a beautiful lady, and you have such a huge heart, and you just want to help other people. And I love surrounding myself with individuals like that. Those who are just want to go out there and just love people, and both you and I, man, we surround ourselves with other people who just want to do the same, right? They just want to spread love. And it doesn't matter what journey they're on, as long as it's on a healthy journey, right? And whatever that journey is for them. And if they do start slipping back, we know them enough to where we can say, hey, I'm kind of concerned,
Yeah.
is there anything I can do to help? Because again, we all need that accountability and we
Yeah.
all slip backwards, every single one of us. The storm gets that side hill muddy and slippery, and sometimes
Yeah.
our feet are going like this, and instead of going a foot forward, we go 3 foot back,
Yeah.
But if we
Yep.
have someone behind us to grab our butt and start pushing us,
Yep.
saying it's okay, it really makes life a lot better. So a huge thank you to what you do, and you are huge out there in the recovery community. You deserve to be looked up to in my eyes. You really do, because you've put a lot of hard work into yourself, not just the community, but it's in yourself, which has put you high in the community, if that makes sense. You did it not on a, I'll say selfish. And the reason why I say selfish, because we have to be selfish. We have to be selfish with who we are as individuals, not selfish to where I'm freezing. Can I borrow your coat? Oh, hell no, man. I'm cold too. Screw you.
Yeah.
Or the selfish is going, hey, you know, I have to love myself. And as long as I'm loving myself, I can emit so much more love out there and I can help so much more
Yep.
people. So, as we close, is there any last thoughts you would like to share?
Um, I just think like the whole point of today and my journey is I want each and every person that I know that I may be coming in contact with, anyone out there that is struggling or you're not sure where you fit or you belong, just a reminder of you belong. You deserve to take up space. I want you here. I will love you until you love yourself. And just have be willing to ask for help when you need it, and be courageous enough to show up for yourself and your own healing. And you matter, I matter. Like, this is what it's about. So find your people and stay and be courageous and know that there is hope and you are loved. I love you.
Yeah. Amen. I love that message. Follow your journey. That's it's your journey. Yep. Amen. Well, again, Amber, thank you. And a big, huge thank you again to Emergo Academy, guys. Check out emergoacademy.com. Dave and Susan are amazing. They have helped me so much in my life, and I'm so grateful for it. Again, recovery is a brain thing, and it really is. It is a brain thing, and it is about choice. And sometimes we have to make certain choices, and sometimes we have to use bridges and crutches to help us get to the other side of where we need to go. And like Amber said, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. So right before we sign off here, guys, I just want to throw a big mention out there again. Guys, mark your calendar. The Healing Utah Success Summit on October
Yay.
4th at the Pillar Free Enterprise Building in Sandy, Utah, 10:30 to 3:30. We have some amazing speakers. Amber is speaking. I know she's excited and nervous at the same time. But however, you just heard Amber today on the show. You're
Yeah.
going to get so much more. Come to the event and listen to Amber's talk. And again, we've got some other great speakers. We have speakers that have been in prison and was in gangs, and they've worked themselves out of it, and they're living a wonderful, amazing life right now. And they're doing so many good things. We've got a lot of good education. So please, guys, mark your calendars. And if you guys want to buy a ticket, you can buy a ticket at the door. They're only 25 bucks. Or you can go to, oh my gosh, Healing Success Summit.com, and you can get your tickets there as well. We'd love to see you. We've got some
Yes,
great.
come out, come out.
Yep, come out, come out, come out. Okay, guys, we're going to leave you with this as we do at the end of every show. Remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.